I'm gonna guess it was 2003, could have been 4, the first time I used foam rollers. They had always been around, and they were usually, whether it was not in the Sixers, I bought them all. There was no foam rollers. But let's say you're in a gym and it would look all ratty and disgusting, or maybe it would have like different colors. There's a physical therapy brand. Here's a free plug, OTPT, I think that's what it's called. They would always have them because it was used in physical therapy, but it was also very, very useful in Feldenkrais, especially a half roller. You'd put it vertical in your back and like whatever. We had them in 2003, just when you start to get influenced. I remember that was also the first time I heard a lot of the people that I look up to and now call older brothers had a foam roller for everybody. And it was like the white ones. But when you get the white ones, which I'm not sure they even still sell, they would get beat up quickly. So I had them all laid out for, we wouldn't even use them every day. I kind of be strategic in the different warm-ups. And obviously foam roller is a very beginning part of a warm-up if you're going to use it. If I had to pick, I might even use it at the end. I swear I didn't know, but that's where we were. I think it was NBA TV that was filming that day. I swear I didn't know, even though it looked like it was set up to do this new cool thing that not a lot of people had seen, just because it's filming. And there was somebody in our staff that really gave me a hard time, and that's okay. I would, that's fine. We got into it, and I think at that time there would be this prevailing thought that what foam roller did, like why did you do it? I would simply say, before I even give you my opinions on what I do think it does, there is a relative fact that when most people get on the floor and roll around on a foam roller, they get up and do something more desirably. Something desirable happened. I didn't even say something good happened. I'm using the words very carefully, that when most people foam roll, whether they even like how it feels or not, they can do something better or more desirably when they're done. And if that's as far as you need to get with foam rolling, that's fine. I can tell you what it doesn't do. It doesn't fundamentally change the tissue, and I might have believed that it did in 2003. Come on, I'm 20-some years old, I'm allowed. The word myofascial is not even, I don't even know exactly what that means. It's one that I'll use, but you're not releasing anything. You're not creating like any fundamental change in the tissue. I mean, that extends, to these suggestions that the IT band is, you might as well foam roll a chain link fence or hang a full hog off of a IT band. So there's no white foam roller, there's no black foam roller, there's no blue foam roller with ridges on it, etc. that's going to change the quality of this tissue. But the whole idea that the word adhesion even exists, like, you need the tissues to slide. Again, these reductionist theories, but you're not breaking an adhesion. Your hands can't break an adhesion. You don't even know what an adhesion is. Adhesion different than a trigger point. I'll stand on my head with a trigger point. Is there an area that feels different to your hands? Yes. I don't think it's an adhesion, that something is literally adhesed. It just feels different. Maybe it feels tighter. Maybe there's reasons that system has created resting tension. But I don't know that's it. You're breaking an adhesion. A knot, there's no the tissue knot. If somebody wants to say, now how I might comment to a client, or somebody wants to say that, what I would typically say is, oh, that feels great. You're breaking up that knot. I'm like, well, it's not exactly what's happening, but if you like how you feel, then I'm compelled to continue. Maybe I would say that's not really what's happening, but let's just say I'm touching you, and if you do something better when we're done, that's all I really care about. But I'm not really thinking that I'm breaking a knot. Then if they ask, oh, really, what is happening? And I give them my opinion on interpretation of the science. If they don't ask, which is most of the time, they just want their leg to move better, then that's where we leave it. But what is happening? Well, one of the, and I think you can find this as a knockoff on the internet, whatever the chapter is in Super Training, where they talk about 22 different tenets of PNF, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. One of the concepts of using your hands to create this proprioceptive effect that involves nerve and muscle to facilitate movement, PNF, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, is that deep pressure creates a relaxing environment. Probably no differently why you give your dog a heavy blanket when it's thunder. You have to hold a deep hug for 8 seconds to have this optimal oxytocin response. There is a very reliable human response to deep pressure. Now we're talking about a foam roller. And what is genuinely happening, my opinion, is instead of someone using their hands, we're now manipulating our body around this, hopefully brand new white foam roller. If we look at the specific nerve endings that can be impacted from a number of different external stimuli, Merkel cells and Meissner's nerve endings should be the ones that come out. Pacinian corpuscles, not as much, but maybe also because they would typically be labeled as transmitting a stimulus of vibration. But Meissner's and Merkel's are for touch, and if we are applying this relatively consistent pressure in that area, then those nerves are carrying signals to the brain. And if foam rolling is not taken as a noxious response, which we know it can, it is done in the right dose for the right person who understands why they're doing it, then their brain may create this PNF impact that then temporarily releases some tension. So there's that word release. But you're not releasing this tangible thing. You're allowing tension to change in this acute fashion, and in no way, shape, or form should you expect that tension will remain as such. But it's like you open the window and then it's going to close. And if you do something really, really good to open the window, maybe it closes slower. But as long as the window's open, that's where you jump in and steal as much stuff out of the house as you can. That's the type of exercise that probably was not being executed that led to your quad feeling tight in the first place of why you like to foam roll. Now, I use the quad as an example because there may be other ways, because lots of the historical data would suggest if you foam roll what you think is the IT band, which is probably just your vastus lateralis, and all of a sudden your knee pain or your pain on that side or your back pain goes away. I also think that there's this resting tension of contractile elements in muscle. Remember, muscle has connective and contractile elements. So if the muscle is subtly contracting, and then you take advantage of deep pressure that maybe travels to the brain through Merkel cells and Meissner's nerve endings, maybe also Pacinian corpuscles, then all of a sudden, what else goes through those areas? You've got lots of veins on the side of your thigh that might be getting crimped. And from an osteopathic, or using other words, you can go back and watch some of the posts that I did with Dr. Matt Tolstoy. The Asian medicine nomenclature, the definitions are actually very, very similar to what we might use in an osteopathic approach or even some allopathic orthopedic approaches. Because if there's traffic, because the tissue is being crimped and the veins are not flowing as fast as possible, that is one potential reason why somebody might perceive threat and verbalize pain. So if you take some of this deep pressure on the side of your thigh and all of a sudden your knee and or hip or back feel better, maybe it's because you released resting tension in the vastus lateralis where components of the femoral vein travels. That might be the same reason that other types of osteopathic techniques work, or why you might needle in certain areas, which might also have the exact same effect. So all of these things in my mind are really doing the same thing. And if there's any posts that I have that explain my opinions on why manual therapy works, it's the same exact thing. I would certainly expect hands and needles to be more pinpoint and more effective and be able to do more things than foam roller. I'd probably put the vibration gun lower than the roller. I also don't think God made vibration guns for therapists to use on you. I think they made them to use for themselves, on yourself. Foam roll next, or other types of tools that you can use. And then moving on, there's probably a gap to garbage hands or very non-discerning hands to very, very specific hands and needles. And they're all doing the same thing in my mind, among others. But I think if there's one link through all those different things where I'll say foam rolling is like the cousin that lives in hillbilly, southeast somewhere. Yeah, I said that. But they're doing the same things as what a great set of hands and needles would do, would be to ultimately decrease resting tension in contractile elements and how the signal gets to your brain and how the brain interprets it. If it's in a reliable fashion, that's exactly what will happen. But that's where you crack somebody's neck or you do some great manual therapy and they feel great, but then it just comes right back, which is a fair thing to put on anybody. Just say, hey, look, I think we need to do some exercise to either remodel the tissue or remodel your motor control so that this doesn't come back. I think that part gets left out. Where foam roller might be a great proxy to maybe start the process, but maybe support good hands or good manipulation, where maybe it's not practical to see an elite practitioner as often as necessary. But that's where foam rolling can perhaps support some of these good things, and then you can get in that window while it's still open, where a great set of hands or needles or whatever, and also cupping would probably fit, scraping would probably be somewhere in this list, again, when done correctly. You would reset, the reinforcement might be the foam rolling, and then the reloading, and these are terms that I don't even know if FMS land still uses, but they do mean something to me, where I just gave you an example of a reset, not a word that I use, but I understand what that definition is in that context. So if we're here, we do a little bit of side bend and a little bit of boom, and all of a sudden your neck feels better. And then we foam roll the upper back, we foam roll the shoulders. You use a stick, again, the stick was meant to be used on your own. I'm showing you this weird way because when you get the stick, it would have a handout with it that showed you how to use it on your trap. But there's also that a company makes like what looks like a pizza cutter, and is a perfect angle for you to treat your own trap, because of course the wedging the stick against the wall was this weird just you couldn't do it. Anyway, that would be your reinforcement, and then hopefully during that same session, because great manual therapy should work that quickly if the tissue, if it truly is just a neural locked or a motor control issue. Let's teach them some exercises so that while it is pain-free and joints are getting into an ideal position, we can change the direction of the connective tissue. We can change motor control in an effective way. Foam roll fits that. If you're using foam roll for other reasons, whatever. In the training process, it fits. You feel good, then you start to ramp up your warm-up and get into your meat and potatoes of your training. Or foam roll for 40 minutes. If you are compelled to do that just to do something else, there's something going on here. This is a challenge. I'm not going to tell you not to do it, but if all you want to do that day, because one other thing that again is I have heard people talk about this. Foam rolling is like this unique core work. Like you have to manipulate your body on your back, on your side. You're in this plank to get your groin. Like it's not void of value for that person. Maybe that's also why they're feeling better as they create muscle contractions in particular areas where, let's say they have extension-based back pain, they're doing their quads, but then they dip in like this, so then they engage just inherent, oh, my back pain goes away, and then they're still working their quads or groin. So you're in that side plank position. I think there's value in these types of things. You get a good pec stretch, and when you put the little ball or spiky ball or ball that'll explode if you leave it there too long. So I think there's another value point in terms of how you control your body around all of these things. And I do think that it is very reasonable to say that you are not doing anything to the tissue. You are simply modulating the current acute status of the tissue, and that's a good thing. Foam rolling is a very, very good thing. It's a more slippery question to if you think it's working for the wrong reasons, is that really a bad thing? Yeah, I see both sides to a point.